How's it going, troops? Jordan here, back again with another Black Ops Cold War loadout video. In today's loadout, we're going to be heading over to the Persian Gulf as we join the US Marines and take back Kuwait from Saddam's Iraqi forces. So today's loadout is titled Desert Storm. Make sure you give this video a thumbs up and hit subscribe, and let's jump right in. With this Desert Storm loadout, we're going to be role playing as a US Marine fighting in the Gulf War. Because this is a military themed setup, our playstyle for this loadout is going to be roleplay. And given that we're going to be using a 90s style mix of weaponry up against enemy players with meta weapons, I've labelled today's loadout difficulty as moderate. So starting off with our primary weapon, we're going to create a mashup of the Kar-15 or Colt Commando and the M16A2, which I'll explain in a moment. For this loadout though, we're going to go with the M16. During Operation Desert Storm, US Marines use Colt weapons such as the M16A2 and Kar-15 as their primary weapon choice. Luckily for us, we have both these weapons in multiplayer under the designations of XM4 and M16. The XM4 is fully automatic, but the M16 has that carry handle that is also part of the Colt Commando. However, for this weapon setup, we're going to choose aesthetic over functionality and recreate something similar to the XM4 carbine. So my choice of primary is going to be the M16. But we're not going to go in bare bones with the M16, so let's talk attachments. Our first attachment is going to be the SOCOM Eliminator. The SOCOM muzzle helps to reduce the cyclic recoil of the burst, while also reducing our muzzle signature on the enemy's minimap. Our next attachment is going to be the 16.3 inch titanium barrel. This barrel is a bit shorter than the standard M16 one, and this makes the weapon look more carbine-like, just like the Kar-15. For our third attachment, we're going to go with a 45 round mag, and we're choosing this magazine to get that curved look of the NATO 5.56x45mm cartridge that the Kar-15 uses compared to the base magazine. Next attachment is going to be the field tape. This handle wrap gives the M16 that rugged look, as well as making us more resistant to flinch, so that's why we're going to go with that attachment. And lastly, our fifth attachment is going to be the SAS Combat Stock. This combat stock not only benefits us with faster aim walking movement speed, but replaces that base stock on the M16 with a collapsible buffer tube stock that is typically seen on Colt rifles. So now that we've discussed our primary weapon configuration, it's time to move on to our secondary weapon of choice for this loadout. For our secondary weapon, we're going to choose the 1911. Different sidearms were used by the US Marines in the early 90s, including the Beretta M9 and the M1911. We don't have the M9 available in Cold War multiplayer, so we'll make use of the 1911 pistol instead. We're only going to choose one attachment for our 1911 pistol, and that is the SWAT 5mm laser sight. This laser sight will improve our hipfire accuracy when in close quarters, and save us time from aiming precisely at our enemies in a life or death moment. So now that we've discussed our primary and secondary weapon configurations, it's time to move on to our perk setup. For our tier 1 perk, we're going to choose Engineer. As the US Marines push forward into Kuwait, they were greeted by the threat of barbed wiring, landmines and IEDs along the border. As such, the Marines had to slowly proceed forward, scanning every square foot of land in front of them to avoid being blown to pieces. We can replicate this in Cold War by equipping the Engineer perk to see enemy explosives and equipment through walls and prevent ourselves from unnecessary deaths. For our tier 2 perk, we're going to choose Tracker. Tracker will not only let us see enemy footprints in the sand, but also lets us reveal enemy locations to our teammates. This reflects how the US Marines work together in their units when pushing towards Kuwait City to take back control from Saddam's occupation. So for that reason, Tracker will be our second tier perk. And for our tier 3 and final perk, we're going to select Cold Blooded. US Marines wore camouflage DBDU and DCU uniforms during Operation Desert Storm, which allowed them to blend into the desert backdrop from hostile forces across the way. Cold Blooded mimics this by hiding our thermal signature as well as our name tag and infrared marker, so that's why Cold Blooded will be our third tier perk. Moving on now to our wildcard, equipment and field upgrade. For our lethal equipment, we're going to go with a frag grenade. M67 fragmentation grenades were used by the Marines during the Gulf War, so we'll equip the frag grenade in our lethal slot. We're also going to make use of the Danger Close wildcard, which will allow us to double up on our frags, giving us a second shot at blowing out the bad guys from sheltering behind cover. As for our tactical equipment, we're going to go with a stim shot. Field medics in the USMC were also deployed to Kuwait, and from there they treated the Marines that were injured while fighting Iraqi forces. Making use of the stim shot in Cold War gives us that role of being a field medic, in that we can quickly regen our health in an instant. And lastly, for our field upgrade, we're choosing the Assault Pack. The Assault Pack provides the team with a resupply of ammo and keeps the squad fighting on against the bad guys, just like the US Marines did. Combined with the Danger Close wildcard, this will provide us with extra starting ammunition while we let our team top up their weapons with ammo from the assault pack. So now that we've talked about our equipment and field upgrade, it's time to finish off this loadout with our Scorestreak selection. For our first Scorestreak, we're going to choose the cruise missile. Laser guided missiles were a big game changer for the Gulf War, as they could lock onto enemy tanks and even the enemy themselves, as they gave off enough infrared heat to be tracked by these guided missiles. So to represent this, we'll start off by selecting the cruise missile. For our second Scorestreak, we're going to choose the VTOL Escort. Prior to Operation Desert Storm, the US government organised Operation Desert Shield, a mission to protect the Saudi border from the Iraqi military moving across the border. A total of 48 F-15 fighter jets were sent to Saudi Arabia, and from there, the US Air Force engaged in round-the-clock patrols along the Saudi-Iraq border. Towards the end of the conflict, pilots in the air could see the smoke and flames coming from burning oil wells, caused by retreating Iraqi forces executing a scorched earth policy. So that's why we'll go with the VTOL Escort. And for our third and final Scorestreak, we're going to go with the highest streak in multiplayer, the gunship. Lockheed AC-130 gunships were flown throughout the Gulf War and fired down high-power weaponry and bombs on multiple targets. The US Marines would advance north on the ground and radio in for air assaults on hostile tanks, anti-air gunners and ground forces firing back at the Marines. We have the gunship in multiplayer, but it is the highest costing Scorestreak in the game, so your chances of earning one of these is unfortunately slim. Regardless, the gunship will still be our third and final Scorestreak. So troops, that wraps up my Desert Storm loadout video for Black Ops Cold War. Next time you boot up Cold War multiplayer, definitely give this class setup a try in game and storm Kuwait City. If you did enjoy this loadout video, then give the video a thumbs up, I'd appreciate it a lot. And if you haven't subscribed to the channel already, then why haven't you? Hit subscribe right now and also click the bell notification icon next to it, so that way you're always notified as to when I make an upload. If you have any friends who might be interested in this sort of content, then share the video around with them to help give my loadout videos and my channel more widespread exposure. And if you want to see behind the scenes previews of my loadout videos, you can follow me on Twitter at jordanxbrookes for all the latest on there. So until the next video, I thank you all for watching, stay true to me troops, and I'll see you in game.